So next up for Liverpool in the Champions League, it's a trip to RB Leipzig. And this new format confuses things a little bit. It's not exactly certain what the Reds will need to get through to the next round, particularly to finish in that top 8, although they have crunched the numbers and they think around 16 points will do it. So if Liverpool can get on 9 points from 3 games, that's a really, really good start to getting them there and getting them through to that next knockout stage as quickly as possible. And so this is an important game for Liverpool. Unfortunately, as they come into this one, the injuries do seem to be piling up for Arne Slot, so it's giving him a little bit of a headache to contend with. I mean, we saw open training earlier today, and Diogo Jota, Federico Chiesa and Conor Bradley all missing, and they were joined in, of course, Alisson Becker and Harvey Elliott, who aren't expected to be back anytime soon. So, as I say, the injuries are becoming a little bit of an issue for Arne Slot. It makes it harder to pick your team, and he's also got to consider several other elements. One of those is the fact that the game against Chelsea on Sunday was so intense, a really difficult fixture where Liverpool had to do a lot of running and a lot of defending with Chelsea dominating the ball. And then, of course, after this trip to RB Leipzig, it's a game against Arsenal away, a massive game in the early stages of the title race that Liverpool hope they will be in. Now, of course, despite the fact that the fixture list is as it is, the manager's always got to consider where can he give players rest, where they need it, where is he able to do that. And the fact is, it's tough coming into this one because this should be a tricky fixture as well. I mean, you're coming up against a side in RB Leipzig who sits second in the Bundesliga, but one of the reasons I think there's possibility that we could see changes in this one is you got to think back to a couple of years ago when Liverpool played RB Leipzig home and away. It was obviously the season where they lost all the centre halves. They were really struggling that season, and yet they beat them 2-0 in both games, looked pretty comfortable in both fixtures and didn't have much trouble. So I think that does emphasise there is a little bit of a gap, isn't there, between the Bundesliga sides who are not Bayern Munich and the English sides, and Liverpool in particular. And RB Leipzig's 2 games in the Champions League so far this season against Atletico Madrid and Juventus, they've lost both of them. So for me, Liverpool, if they turn up and do the job correctly, they should be heavy favourites to win this one. And that is despite the fact that I could imagine them being big favourites, even if they make a few changes. And I do think they do need to make a few tweaks to the starting lineup just to recognise the intensity of that Chelsea game and the hugely important fixture that's coming up against Arsenal. So I'm going to go into my starting 11 and go through it as usual. Maybe let me know in the comments before you start watching what you would pick, and then see if I can maybe change your mind if there's any differences there. So start as ever with the goalkeeper, and that is a really easy one, isn't it? No Alisson Becker, as I mentioned, he's still a while away. We think the other side of the international break. So Quiveen Kelleher is the clear first choice in goal, isn't he, with Yaros backing him up and likely to be on the bench. So pick Kelleher there. Now I'll start with the full-backs when I move into defence, and at right back, again, another injury. Conor Bradley not there. He would be the ideal man, wouldn't he, to come in if you wanted to change things up there. And I think I do want to make a change there because Trent Alexander-Arnold, he played 2 games for England. He came back. He had a little bit of illness in the build-up to Chelsea. I thought he played fantastically, particularly on the defensive side of things. But you really want to protect him and make sure he's fully over that illness and that he's absolutely flying going into that Arsenal game where he'll be so important. And I think Joe Gomez is a real option in this position, so I would like to pick him there. Obviously, he comes on towards the end against Chelsea again to recognise the fact that Trent had that illness and had got through a lot of defensive work in the game. And I thought Gomez was really, really good. And I do wonder whether him coming on was not just to protect Trent, but also maybe to give him a little bit of match action and try and get a little bit of sharpness into him in preparation for him coming in for this game. Or, potentially that's what happened, and that's why I'm going to pick him here anyway. I think it's a good change and a strong change that Liverpool could make. And I will go to the other side of full-back, and I am making a change there as well. Kostas Tsimikas has been on kind of a job share, hasn't he, with Andy Robertson so far this season. And I think you do, again, Robertson, we spoke about it, had so many injuries last season, and age-wise, he's getting around 30 now, isn't he? You've got to protect him a little bit more. And I think at the weekend as well, he's coming up against Saka. Likely, imagine he's missing maybe the Champions League game in midweek, but you would expect him to be back for a big one like Liverpool, and that's a big test for Robertson. So you'd like him as fresh as possible. And Tsimikas has come in as a deputy so far this season and done a very good job. And Slot definitely seems to trust him. So we saw him start in Milan away, so I see no reason why he wouldn't trust him for this one as well. So I think that will again be another sensible change that will make sure both your fullbacks are really fresh going into the test against Arsenal. Now, because I am making 2 changes there, I think the manager's going to look at this and think, you don't want to make too many tweaks to your defence. You don't want to completely break things up. You've got to keep some partnerships to allow you to stay solid. And I think Virgil van Dijk, of course, is an obvious pick there. He seems to be available for every game. He's the captain, and he plays on cruise control half the time because he's so well protected, and he doesn't, generally Liverpool will dominate the ball, so he doesn't have too much to do. So, of course, I'm throwing him in, and alongside him, I've gone, as I said, because the fullbacks are changing, I want to keep things solid, keep as many partnerships going as possible, and so I've put Ibrahima Konate in there as well. Now, if you do need to change him late in the game, you're worried about minutes build up or whatever, Jarell Quansah is there potentially, isn't he, to come in, but I would like to see that same centre-half partnership and then changes at full-back. Now, moving to midfield now, and a couple of obvious picks in here. I think obviously Gravenberch will surely start this one. He's developed into a key man for Liverpool so far this season, being absolutely fantastic, and see no reason why he wouldn't be in the starting 11 here. And alongside him in that midfield too, I expect it to be Alexis McAllister. Now, it turned out that the reason he was pulled out of the team and didn't start the game against Chelsea was not because of the injury niggle that he's had recently, because he also has had a little bit of illness, but he's in training now, should be over that. He was on the bench against Chelsea anyway and did make a brief appearance, so should be fully ready for this, and no reason why he can't play this one and play Arsenal back-to-back. So, I would restore him straight into the starting lineup. He's massively important, isn't he? And, it could have a big influence on both these games. And that final midfield spot, actually, I've gone for a little bit of a tweak to this one. Now, has been some criticism of Dominic Szoboszlai, and I think some of it a little bit over the top. I think the work he does on the defensive side is fantastic, but I will admit that inconsistency in terms of what he delivers on the ball, that has become a little bit of a frustration, and I don't think he's been quite as disastrous as been made out, but I would say that his place is a little bit up for grabs because that inconsistency is there. And I think when you've got a decision to make over a player like that, because he's not absolutely in his best form, and you've got someone who's competing for a place in Curtis Jones, who looked absolutely fantastic at the weekend, why not make that change? That's what you want competition in your squad for, is to be able to make these changes. And one of the things I also think about the idea of trying a Gravenberch, McAllister, Jones midfield three is that on paper seems like a very, very solid, difficult to break down midfield three. A lot of legs, a lot of work rate, real defensive nous in there. Szoboszlai is a good defender in terms of his running, but he's more kind of front-footed, a bit more of a presser really, whereas Jones is very sort of, will keep you solid, will get in behind a player to cover off angles. So I like the idea of those as a three, and with it being Arsenal away at the weekend, I just think an opportunity to try it here in this away game to see how it works, and if it works well and Jones keeps his form up, then that's your midfield three for Arsenal. So that's the three I've selected there, is Gravenberch, McAllister and Jones, to see how that goes and see if that is the right selection to bounce into Arsenal with. Now, moving into the front three, again, a couple of obvious picks here. Obviously, Mo Salah will start. A goal and an assist against Chelsea. He's just fantastic, isn't he? And, again, the only question mark around him is you don't want to drive him into the ground and play him too frequently. So if he does start in this one, as you would expect, get him off as soon as possible. If Liverpool can get a 2 or 3-0 lead, that's absolutely an opportunity to drag him off the pitch and make sure he's ready for Arsenal at the weekend. And on the left-hand side, again, I think this is an easy one to change up. I thought Gakpo was quite quiet against Chelsea, not his best game. Diaz was, of course, rested because he'd been in South America for the internationals, but I don't think Gakpo nailed down the shirt. So for me, this is a good chance. Get Diaz back in there, and I imagine he would also start against Arsenal, so getting back into the rhythm of the team. So I think he's an obvious pick to change things up on that left-hand side. And of course, that just leaves the centre-forward position. Diogo Jota, unfortunately, not in training today. We'll have to see what happens with that injury that he's picked up. I know he's undergoing a scan yesterday, so we'll have to wait and see if Slot offers an update in his press conference about how Jota's getting on, but obviously won't be involved in this game, and therefore I think it's a really easy pick, isn't it, to put Darwin Núñez in there. Of course, he came on against Chelsea, and I've been a critic of him in the past, I must admit. I do think, still got that battle with inconsistency, but I thought he was absolutely fantastic against Chelsea. His work off the ball, his pressing, but also what he did in build-up, really looked after the ball and used it well. And he just looked full of confidence as well, actually. So, if Jota's going to be out for a couple of weeks or whatever this transpires to be, hopefully he's back for Arsenal, we'll see. But if he is going to be back out for a little while, then getting Nunez confident and keep him in the team and giving him minutes is really important. So hopefully he can take his form from the Chelsea game into this one, maybe even get on the score sheet to further boost his confidence. But either way, he is my starting pick at centre forward. So that is my starting 11 to face RB Leipzig. Please do let me know, what do you think? Have I made too many changes there, or are there some tweaks you would make that I haven't gone with in my starting 11? Do let me know. Always interested to hear what you guys think in the comments. As ever, I'm going to leave it there by asking you to like and subscribe. And actually, before I do finish up, I just want to mention as well, if you guys aren't familiar with this, that I've recently launched a Substack. That's at davidlynchlfc.co.uk. That's where all my insight, transfers, injury updates, all the information about backroom team or any changes there. That's where it's all going at the moment. So davidlynchlfc.co.uk. If you haven't checked it out, please do. There'll be a link below as well, just to make it easier that you don't have to type it out. Just go and click it. I really would appreciate if everyone could check that out. And if you would like to subscribe as well, again, I would massively appreciate that. So I'm going to leave it there. And of course, I'll be back for my post-match review after the RB Leipzig game, and hopefully we're talking about a win that gets Liverpool even closer to progressing to the next round of the Champions League. So see you then.